Ben, so I wanted to ask you a question. You said earlier that a lot of Democrats are uncomfortable looking at pictures of children that are being aborted. Yet I would say that you and many other Republicans would feel equally uncomfortable looking at pictures of Sandy Hook victims who were shot. How can you honestly stand up here and say that you support abortion, you support government intervention, you support government intervention to make abortion illegal, which is designed to kill someone, and yet you can stand up here and say you don't want government intervention for guns, which are also designed to kill people?
Because guns are not designed to kill children. Guns are designed to kill bad guys if operated by a proper person. There's not an abortion in the world that doesn't end with the death of a baby. Honestly, the reason, I have no problem with looking at the pictures of gun violence victims other than the problems any other human being, left or right, would have with looking at those pictures, which is that they're horrific and deeply disturbing and very upsetting. But I don't feel any sense of guilt or avoidance. Like, I can't look at this picture because I bear some sort of responsibility for this. It is impossible not to look at a picture of an aborted baby and say this was disconnected from the act that I approve, because the act is the killing of the baby. There's no policy that I approve of that ends with the murder of children. Okay? There is a policy that is designed for the murder of children, which is what abortion is. Yeah, that's fine. You can have a quick follow-up. That's fine, sir.
Okay, so but if all people, right, you said that once the cells come together, you said those are considered people, which I can understand. I can get behind
I said that's considered a human life.
A human life, right.
Yes.
Why is this human life being killed and another human life being killed by gun violence? Why is that any different?
Again, it's not a matter of the value of the human life being different. It's equally as evil and tragic and horrific and disgusting when people kill fully formed children who are outside the womb. My point is that the act that connects to the killing of the children is not connected to my position on guns. The act that connects to the killing of unborn babies is connected to the legalization of abortion. The reason that I want people to be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights is to shoot pieces of like the people who go into schools and shoot up children. Right? I have two kids. They both go to a Jewish school, which means they are on the target list for somebody out there. Right? Jewish schools are disproportionately targeted, unfortunately, in the United States. I went to a Jewish school when I was in high school. There were bomb threats legitimately every couple of months. In 1999, there was a white supremacist who drove by our Jewish day school, saw an armed guard outside, proceeded to drive away, went to the West Valley JCC, and shot up the West Valley JCC. The reason that I'm in favor of gun rights is because I want that armed guard outside carrying the gun to dissuade people from going inside the school and shooting the kid. I'm not in favor of...
Hi. You often cite this study from the Brookings Institute that says there's three simple things adolescents need to do to improve their economic standing who are living in poverty. Since it's so easy to follow these rules, do you view poverty as a fault in character?
No, I don't view poverty as a fault in character. I feel that sometimes poverty is a result of mistakes that are made that are faults in character, meaning that poverty itself is not the fault. I mean, a lot of us will go through poverty at some point in our life. Maybe we have a medical problem. You know, maybe we lose a job. So I'm not saying that poverty itself is the descriptor of a fault. What I am saying is that if you make mistakes that are obvious to avoid and then you end up poor, that's kind of your fault, right? So, but you have to make the mistakes. You can't just say, oh, poor person, it's his fault that he's poor. What you can say is, oh, look, person who decided to drop out of high school, get pregnant out of wedlock, and never get a job, that person's poor. Yeah, kind of their fault. Right, because of the three decisions that they made. And the three decisions, for folks who don't know, are those three decisions, right? Finish high school, don't have a baby out of wedlock, and get a job, any job, right? If you fulfill all those three things, only 2% of people in the United States who do all three of those things end up in permanent poverty. So is poverty connected to your activity? Of course, poverty is very often connected with your activity, but the poverty is not what makes you a bad person, I can't inherently say the poor person did something wrong. I can't say the person who did something wrong did something wrong.
This will be our last question.
Well, no pressure. I don't know if I'll have time for my question, but I have an answer to a question that you commonly pose whenever the topic of institutional racism is brought up.
Sure.
You always ask, where is the institution? Show me the racist laws so that we can fight them together.
Correct.
Welcome to Alabama. This would qualify as a racist institution, the state of Alabama.
So now I go back to the question that you say that you answered, which is, show me the law. You've named an institution you don't like, now show me the law.
No, it's not an institution I don't like. I've lived here my whole life. But
I mean, you called it racist, so I assume you're not super fond of it.
Yeah, it has flaws, to say the least. But the Constitution of Alabama demands that schools be segregated by race. If it weren't for the federal government, there would only be white people in this room. And we have tried to repeal this language, to get it out of the Constitution, at least once a decade, and it has failed. Every time we have voted to keep segregation as law in the state of Alabama. So I'd say that qualifies the state as
yes. If that, so I will admit to you. Okay, so a couple of fundamental assumptions. Okay, I'm going to admit I have not read the Constitution of the state of Alabama, so I don't know the provision that you are talking about. I will assume that it says what you say it says for the purposes of this conversation. If in fact there's a provision in the state law of Alabama that says that segregation is mandated by law, of course that's racist, that's Jim Crow, and that would be institutional racism. The point that I'm making is that there are a lot of black people in this room today because the institutional racism that you are decrying was in fact wiped out at the legal level by the federal government in the 1960s. So if you're citing a law from 1873 or 1865, whenever the Constitution embedded segregation, if you're citing that law to prove institutional racism and that law has not been applied for 50 years, you're going to need to do better.
There were several lawmakers in the last few years caught on tape talking about the need to suppress the black vote, referring to black people as aborigines and illiterates.
Right. I've always said there are racist people. And by the way, when there are people who act in maliciously racist fashion, in my opinion, I have donated money to their primary opponents. Right. I did that like a month ago for Steve King.
These are lawmakers, though. These are people who are actually making laws in this state.
So I don't understand where we disagree. In other words, if you show me the comment and I say I oppose the comment and therefore I oppose the lawmaker, and then they pass a law and I agree that the law is racist and I oppose the law, we don't disagree. So the point that I'm making is, are there people who are racist in the United States? Sure. Are there people who are racist in the government? I'm sure, because the government is representative of the United States. But when people talk about institutional racism, they tend to do so by suggesting, and this is my main argument about institutional racism, to put this in kind of rounded context. The main argument that I'm making about institutional racism is not that racism doesn't exist, it's that to attribute every disparity to discrimination, which is what seems to be the intersectional argument, that if one group of people has less property than another group of people, or one group of people has less wealth, or one group of people is less economically successful, or one group of people is less educated, that is the result of current present-day institutional racism, that is not useful, and in fact it's counterproductive. Because what it is doing is it is suggesting a fault that does not occur in the present. Now, I've also said in every speech that I've made for multiple years at this point that to deny historic racism would of course be idiocy. Of course historic racism exists, of course that has present-day consequences. But that does not answer the question as to which policy currently in place is causing the disparity. So if you can point to the policy that is intended and designed to create disparity between groups, and then you can say that that is what causes the disparity between groups, then we can agree on abolishing the law. I want to get rid of those obstructions the same way that you do. My goal is that the law equally applies to everyone, meaning that everybody has the same rights. We're not all born with the same opportunity because no one is. Some of us are born rich, some of us are born poor, some of us are born short like me, some people are born tall. Right? I mean, people are just born differently. Some people are born smarter and some people are born stupid. This is why Democrats exist. But the fact, it's, It's just a joke. There are lots of smart Democrats. I just don't know why they do what they do. But with that said, I think what people make the mistake of doing is suggesting that because people end up in an unequal position every day, that is the result of current day people standing in their way and obstructing legal anti-discrimination. I don't think that's correct. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Wonderful to be. Roll Tide.